Hello and welcome along to the Property Academy podcast by Omis Partners. I'm your host, Steve McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nicol.
And today's show, we're talking about TradeMe versus realestate.co.nz versus OneRoof. Which is the best website to try and find your next property? And I think this is a really important one because a lot of people in New Zealand, they think, okay, I'm going to go and look for a property. Let me just jump on TradeMe. But there are a couple of other websites that collect and show potential real estate listings or homes listings. And you might think, well, why would I think about using a realestate.co.nz or a OneRoof? So what we're going to do today is go through all of the differences so you can figure out, well, which is the best property website for finding a property in 2025. What are those main differences and how might you use some of their tools to try and negotiate a better deal? Now, Andrew, if we think about these three websites, they all have a different number of listings. So like, which one has the most listings?
Okay, so realestate.co.nz, that's got about 42,000 listings at the moment. OneRoof, about 45. And TradeMe, about 46. So TradeMe's got the most listings and 3.1% more than OneRoof and 10.4% more than realestate.co.nz. So they're all pretty similar. They're all relatively similar. And actually, if you look back to the last time we covered this topic, back in 2024, the difference is about the same. So TradeMe had about 10.5% more than realestate.co.nz, and that's 10.4% today. So the market share is pretty similar. It hasn't changed that much. The main difference is that realestate.co.nz, that's for real estate agents. It's not for private sales, whereas TradeMe, that has private sales as well. So that's probably the difference there.
Yeah, the main reason there is that even if we go onto the New Zealand Companies Office website, and I'll show you this, Andrew, it's quite interesting.
You love this, don't you?
I love the Companies Office.
Stalk.
You can find out like anything about businesses in New Zealand just by going on the Companies Office website. I'll tell you one of my favorite little tips is if you're trying to find like the legal name of a company, I always go to like the privacy policy or the terms and conditions.
That is a good one that you've taught me.
Yeah, on their website, and you can almost always find the legal name of it. Oh, where is it? Where is it? We're finding it today. Oh, they do not have the limited liability number.
Maybe that is the name.
So we're just going to put in realestate.co.nz.
Yeah, it is.
We've found it, realestate.co.nz limited. What's really interesting is if you look at the ownership, so 50% of realestate.co.nz is owned by the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. So that's cool. But then 50% of it is owned by Property Page Limited.
Who's that?
Which is Ray White, LJ Hooker, Barfoot and Thompson, Harcourts and Baileys. And so the reason that realestate.co.nz only has listings for real estate agents, no private sales, is that they are owned by the industry. So they are owned by the big real estate companies. They are owned by the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. So they've made the decision, hey, we're not going to have any private sales on there, private listings. We are only going to have real estate agent listings. So that's the reason why you see that there's about 10% less. Now, there's a big question about, well, am I just going to use TradeMe then because I want the most listings possible? And that's one way to look at it. To be honest, for me,
it's much competition though as well, right?
Well, we'll come to that in a second. I always think, well, I don't really want to negotiate with a private seller because then you sometimes get some headaches around what they think their property's worth. And sometimes I do want to work with a real estate agent to try and badger the owner down. So I don't tend to look at private sales myself anyway. So for me, that's not much of a difference or a reason to say, okay, I'm definitely going to use TradeMe. But I understand some people, if you only want to look at private listings, like don't go to realestate.co.nz then, you've got to go to TradeMe because Recons doesn't have them.
On that note, have you had a conversation about whether or not people advertise on all three platforms or if they pick and choose the platforms?
So my understanding is that it doesn't cost a lot for an agent to go on realestate.co.nz. So what I've been told by people by the different listing platforms that I call up and talk to about these kinds of things is that all real estate agents will go on realestate.co.nz. Most will go on TradeMe, the vast majority. But because TradeMe's listing fees are quite high and keep going up, sometimes either quite price-sensitive agents or price-sensitive sellers will choose not to go on TradeMe. So that's another reason why I use like all three of them if I'm personally looking for properties, but I will not discount realestate.co.nz and say, well, I'm not going to look at that because everybody's on TradeMe, because not everybody's on TradeMe.
Because they formed because TradeMe kept increasing their prices, and then the real estate agent said we need to create a bit more competition. So whilst you might use both still and think, well, that just eliminates the competition aspect of it, by having something else there as an option, then it probably keeps those price hikes from going up so much.
Well, the other thing that's important to note, though, is it's not just realestate.co.nz and TradeMe anymore. OneRoof is actually massive. Like they've got over 45,000 properties currently on their website. And one of the things I want to dig into is like what actually happens when you search for properties, because it actually is a little bit different. You might be like, oh, surely all websites are exactly the same. But they're kind of not. So when you go on TradeMe, look, there's all of the usual stuff that you would expect. You know, if you're looking for a property in Auckland City and you want a specific suburb and you want a specific number of bedrooms or pricing, like, yeah, you can get that. You can search for that. That's pretty much the same across all of them. But what's interesting is when you start getting into more specific type of features, you know, so it's quite cool how in TradeMe you can look for properties that specifically have an ensuite bathroom. That's probably very important if you've got kids and you don't want to share a bathroom with your kids. Separate toilets, like some people really, really care about that. And even things like, new
properties.
They've changed this. They've changed this since the last time we looked at it, Andrew. You can now look for home and incomes and ones that only have open homes. I don't think that was there the last time we had a look at this. That's quite important because you sometimes, like if you're looking for property, you might say, look, I can't be bothered calling up the agent and trying to organize a private viewing. I just want to go to something that's got an open home. You can now search for that. I don't think that was available last time we compared these.
I can't imagine that there'd be many properties being advertised that don't have open homes.
Well, okay.
Let's see how many.
Can I?
My guess is 10%.
Okay. Well, don't have it.
Have them, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go for the entire country.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So do you know what we're doing here? So we're going to go all New Zealand. We're looking for all properties, and we see there are 46,311. Okay. So now, if we say we only want to look at, this
What's
is real.
your guess before you hit?
I reckon it's like 20%.
Okay.
What's the bet?
$100.
Oh, I don't like losing money.
No, you do.
How about because we've got a webinar coming up, how about if I win, I take you out for dinner. If you win, you take me out for dinner.
Will you be using the work card?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we go to, wow. If we look at ones that only have open homes loaded into TradeMe, there are only 10,560.
So that tells you that people aren't loading them into TradeMe.
No. We haven't finished this
you're
yet.
You're saying 75%.
I'm turning off your mic. I'm turning off your mic because I've got a good point to bring up. So you're saying less than 25% of properties currently on TradeMe have open homes, which is
nonsense.
No. I said 80% would have it.
Yes,
you said
I know
90%.
you win. I'm not
so
saying, I'm not saying you don't win. I'm just amazed that obviously they're not loaded in there, right?
Well, that would be
any
part of it.
Any sensible man with your intelligence would agree.
So anyway, I won that one. So you're taking me out for dinner, but I'll put it on my card anyway. Now, let's compare that, like what you could search for on TradeMe compared to OneRoof. So this is a bit more recent. So what have we got here, Andrew?
So you've got similar kind of things. You can look at the type of property, whether it's a house or an apartment or a townhouse. You can look at the type of land, so whether it's freehold, cross-lease, leasehold, etc.
Well, this is interesting because you don't have this on TradeMe, right?
Yeah, that's quite important because a lot of people might say, hey, I don't want a cross-lease property or I don't want to look at a leasehold property. So to be able to include or exclude those is quite useful. And there are some people, there's an investor that I know of in Auckland who pretty much exclusively buys leasehold properties.
Is that right? Yeah, so on TradeMe, you can search for like house, apartment, like the property type, but not the land type. Like I'm interested in what are the two properties that are timeshares? Inquiries over
Ah,
850.
Remember there was that one in Queenstown a wee while ago that Bailey's had, I think, and it was like a $20 million house, and they were essentially selling off chunks of it like a timeshare.
So that would be very useful if you're saying, I specifically want a unit title, I specifically want a cross lease that I can convert, or I only want to look at freehold. The other thing, and this is really big for me, selling method. So on both OneRoof and realestate.co.nz, you can search, and I'll just scroll up. The really cool thing is in your filters, you can search for how the agent is selling the property. So do they have a price on there, like an asking price? Are they doing it by auction or by tender? Now, this is really important for first home buyers because most first home buyers are not turning up at auction. So if I go on TradeMe and I search for some properties, I'm going to see auction, I'm going to see price by negotiation, I'm going to see asking price. If I'm a first home buyer and saying, look, I really need to get a pre-approval, I can't really bid at auction, I've got a maximum price and I don't want to pay for my due diligence up front. Well, I don't want to be looking at auction listings. I just want to be looking at ones that are by negotiation or asking price, maybe deadline sale. And so being able to search for that could be really, really useful on both Recons and OneRoof. And then there's also, I really like on OneRoof, if you click more filters, you can actually search for a lot of stuff.
Time on the market, that's quite an interesting one. So if you want to try and pick up a deal because it had been sat on the market for ages and you thought maybe the vendor was getting a bit desperate, maybe, or maybe they're not desperate at all, that's why it's sat on the market for so long, maybe you could look for a longer time on the market.
So if we say we want to look at properties that have been on there for 12 months plus, there's actually like over 2,000 properties currently on OneRoof that have just sat there. And so if you're like, okay, maybe I could use this to pick up a deal, you could jump on there. Now, some people say, yeah, but if I jump on TradeMe and I look for a property, I can also sort my listings by oldest listings, right? Oh, no, you actually can't do that. Yes, you do latest listings, and then you've got to go all the way back to the end to find the real old ones. So you can see time on the market on OneRoof. I don't think you've got that. You don't have that specific search filter on realestate.co.nz. So that's a little benefit.
Decade built, that's probably something that, again, maybe a first-time buyer who says, hey, I don't really want to own something that was built in the era where it could have been a leaky home. They're really worried about that. They can exclude that or include other decades that they do want to buy in.
Yeah, whereas you don't have that actually on realestate.co.nz or TradeMe, actually. And the other thing that's quite interesting, I know deciles basically don't exist anymore in terms of schools, but OneRoof has still got that on their search filters.
Capital growth, what's that?
So, this is fascinating. So they're saying if you're looking for properties where historically, I'm assuming this is probably the suburb, has been like greater than 15%, 0 to 2.5%, or less than negative 5%. Let's just see what happens if we look for properties that are over 15% capital growth. I wonder what that tells us.
It's going to be land.
What do you mean land?
That's a big piece of land.
Oh, so the value might have gone up there.
Because it's been rezoned or something like that, because that's obviously an extreme capital growth.
Yeah, okay.
Is that the only one that's come up?
No. There were about 550
where
of
are
them.
the rest of them?
So let's have a little look-see at this one. Where's this? Anderson Place. Maybe it's some of these properties like new builds. So maybe they were like a $400,000 house. Then they've been redeveloped. The property value's gone way up, and so that's pushed it up.
It's a really interesting breakdown. Was it 0 to 2.5, and then 2.5 to 5, and then it's 15%? Like, such extreme gap.
Well, I wonder if we look at all New Zealand, clear our filters, and then we search for it. Maybe we'll get like a different result. Oh, here we go. So you've got to go into your filters. Then you won't see all of the really good ones. You've got to click more filters. Oh, but still,
such a weird space of range.
Yeah. From like under 5%, 0 to 2.5, and over 15. But do you know what? I'm actually quite impressed with some of these, with the filters on OneRoof. Like previously, I probably wouldn't have considered them too much, like in terms of like being like, that's the first place I'm going to look for property. but there's some pretty good filters on here. I should say as well, I'm a little bit biased because I write for their news section.
Oh, right. This is you promoting them.
Every like week or so. So just bear that in mind before we get lots of people saying, "Oh, Ed, you're biased because of that." Just want to say that.
It's actually come a long way since last time we did this video.
Yeah, and in fact, I think the last time we did like a comparison, I don't even think we included OneRoof in here. But what I do want to say is that realestate.co.nz, the other thing that's interesting about them, just for people specifically selling their properties, is that if you think about international buyers who want to buy or rent in New Zealand, most of them don't know about TradeMe. Like people in New Zealand know about TradeMe because it's big. But for overseas buyers, they tend to go to realestate.co.nz because they'll be searching for buy real estate in NZ, buy property in NZ. And then when they're looking at, okay, which website do I use? If they see TradeMe, they'll be like, what's this? Oh, it's a marketplace website. If they see realestate.co.nz, they're like, oh, yeah, well, this is clearly the website that you use when you are looking for properties.
Because if you go to the States, for example, and use eBay, you probably don't use eBay to buy a house, do you?
I think people... Zillow?
Yeah,
is it Zillow that people use? The other thing, so I suppose that's just saying don't discount realestate.co.nz if you're thinking about selling your house. The other thing I was just going to mention is that TradeMe property does get more people going and using it. I can't remember the exact stat, but realestate.co.nz it still has a lot of like hits. I think it was something like between a third and 2/3 of what TradeMe gets. So it still gets a lot of traffic. I remember we did some stats looking at their rental listings, and I think their rental listings get something like 4 million searches a month. It's like really, really high in terms of people going on there, which is about 2/3 of what TradeMe gets. The other thing that's different, Andrew, is how you manage your, oh God, whenever I get so distracted by listings.
Pictures.
Sometimes you
nice
see
house.
really lovely houses and you start dreaming. Like it's
You just bought a house.
Oh, I know. I love my house. But it's like other things where you've got an option you're really happy with, but you start seeing other options. The other difference is in how you manage your open homes. So, I mean, talk to us a little bit about that, Andrew.
Yeah, I remember last time we did this comparison, we talked about how realestate.co.nz was better at managing your open home schedule. I think actually you went through and you kind of, you just started adding things to
Yeah,
calendar.
so I'm on a listing now. I can see there's an open home on Saturday. You can add that into your calendar, or you can actually download it as well straight into your calendar.
That's so good now.
And also the auction as well. And if you start adding things to effectively your watch list, I mean, they call it saved properties. Once you end up going into your saved properties on realestate.co.nz, not only can you see them, but you get this really nice calendar view of like what is actually coming up. Now, what's changed since the last time we did this is TradeMe also now has that. Am I logged in? Yes, I am logged in. So if we jump into this TradeMe one.
They must have heard the last podcast.
Well, where is it? I know that you can add it to your calendar.
Hey, so add to watch.
Do you add it to your watch list? You add it to
Add that to
oh,
watch
God.
list.
You know, people who are more prepared probably would have looked at this. Where's the calendar?
Go back.
Back. Oh, I think it's maybe only on the TradeMe property app. How do you see your watch list? Oh, there. So for everybody on the podcast, I was looking for the watch list. Producer David's just pointed it out. That
The word watch list.
It was like literally right there. Do you know what I think? I mean, I'm either very dumb, Andrew, or maybe you can only see like that really nice calendar view
on your phone.
Yeah, on the TradeMe property app, because you've got the TradeMe app and then you've got the TradeMe property app. And do you know what? Maybe I'm just blind because I
Click
can't
on it one
see
more
it.
time and see if we can see it.
Where? What am I clicking on?
Click on one of the
watch
properties.
list. I'm already on watch list.
You click on one
So
of the
okay,
properties.
I'll look
Click
at
on one
that
of the
property.
properties.
I just clicked on it.
Okay, scroll down.
I just clicked
Scroll
on
down.
it.
Scroll down.
I'm scrolling.
slow. So,
open
open home.
homes. Okay, I can see that. Yeah, but it
Yeah,
wasn't in a nice
what's
thing.
the calendar? Click on the calendar.
Yeah, if I click on the calendar, okay.
Oh, there we go.
So you can download it, but it's not like nicely in there.
It's a bit more confusing.
But I do know I'd used the TradeMe property app like previously to look at open homes. You could do it on your phone. So it's quite similar to realestate.co.nz. But what I would say is when I was talking to the realestate.co.nz team, it's quite funny actually. I quite liked what they said. I was talking to Vanessa Williams. She's like head of their media, and she said to me that our site doesn't sell 10-inch stilettos, USB chargers, or recycle old newspaper articles. We just, I think that might have been a dig at OneRoof. Oh, Vanessa. She said we just list the property and so we kind of focus on property listings as opposed to selling lots of other things. And I guess you kind of see that when we're going through being like, okay, we're on the website, we're on TradeMe, can I see those open homes? And it's like, oh, you've got to use the TradeMe property app,
Yes.
like which is very specific for property. So I kind of understand that idea that if you just focus on property, like OneRoof does or like realestate.co.nz does, you sometimes do get a bit more of like the app or the website is just a bit easier to use because it's specifically built for properties.
But also because it's owned by real estate firms as well, or 50% of it is, you think they probably know a thing or two about what people are looking for?
Well, you'd hope so. One thing that I mean, we've just really like ripped into TradeMe a bit. One thing that I would say about TradeMe though is that now that they own homes.co.nz, they're pulling through more data around, like they give a rent estimate for every single property you're buying. Like that could be potentially valuable. I mean, the rent estimate is pretty wide for this property, which is, it's got a CV of 610, inquiries over 620. Like it's a relatively affordable property, but the rental range that they're giving is like between $470 and $590. So it's $120 a week rental range. So that's quite large. It's not necessarily going to be very useful as a property investor trying to look at it. But I like that they're pulling through some of this stuff. If we look at this exact property, this is just like a random one in Palmerston North that we've found. Let's just take a look at it. I know we've been rambling, sorry, Andrew.
We've gone all over the show.
If we look at the exact same property, oh, this is interesting. So this property is listed on TradeMe.
619.
But it is not listed for sale on OneRoof. It looks like they have done the property up as well, which is maybe why, even though like OneRoof is saying, hey, we think it's worth 555 is our kind of estimate, so $555,000. Homes.co.nz was saying, yeah, we think it's somewhere between 510 and 565, but they're selling it for inquiries over 619.
Can you search on real estate as well?
Yeah. Let's have a little look, see at what that looks like. So this one's available for sale, and we can see, I do look like how the open homes are right up the top. It's just a bit easier to see. Do they have an estimate for this property on here? Looks like they may not for this specific one. Yeah, so they haven't got an estimate on there.
So you get a bit more data with OneRoof than you do with real estate.
Yeah, because they've actually got an estimate of what they think the property is worth. That's on pretty much all of them. The other thing I like about OneRoof's estimate is they pull this from Velocity, which is kind of like a CoreLogic alternative. It's a data firm. They might not like me saying that, but it's similar in that they provide estimates of what properties are worth. And so having that there, I kind of have a little bit more confidence in it compared to a homes.co.nz estimate, which, by the way, tomorrow we're talking about how real estate agents can fiddle with those figures. The one thing I do like about OneRoof is that I can see what other properties have sold for, try and find out what they sold for, and that gives you a bit more of a sense of the market as well as you're looking around. So, Andrew, we've rabbited on, but having looked at TradeMe, OneRoof, realestate.co.nz, what's your favourite?
Do I have to choose one, or can I say what I like about each of them?
Just start with, I mean, come on, pick one, mate. But then we can talk about what we like.
So TradeMe, I think, have got the most listings. I use all of them to answer your question in a long way. TradeMe, I think, got the most listings, so you can't go past that. Real estate, I like the calendar feature the most. So I live and die by my calendar. If I'm going to go to open homes and schedule all that, I want to be able to add them to my diary. And Vanessa also said that You can make notes afterwards in your diary about what you like and don't like about that property. I think that's a great feature to be able to go back and remind yourself. And OneRoof, I like them for their data, and I definitely like that data around what sold in the area recently, what else is for sale, what else is for rent. I think that's really important if you're analysing what the best deal is.
Yeah, and with that kind of map view where you're searching around looking for what's sold, homes.co.nz have that, and it is owned by TradeMe, but it's just a separate website. So it's kind of like what's going to work for you. To be honest, I came in thinking like, do you know, last time I think we kind of gave the crown to realestate.co.nz because we're like, actually, they've got some pretty good search features and filters that are going to be specifically useful for like first home buyers. I'm really liking the OneRoof features though. Like there are even more filters that if you're looking for a specific property, you can look at this. But I agree that you're probably going to end up using all of them. Right, let's wrap it up there. But please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Really does help us get the message out to more people. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to hitting our goal of hitting 50,000 subscribers. Thanks for listening to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Steve McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nicol.
We're going to be back here tomorrow with even more daily strategies, tactics, and insights to help you get the most out of the New Zealand property market. Until next time.